Okay, guys, I put a few things away, gave myself a little bit of elbow room. Kind of looked like I was doing the funky chicken. Anyways, and we're gonna add the dry ingredients to the wet ingredients to make ourselves a little batter. So dry ingredients and wet ingredients, and that's all there is to it. So pretty easy peasy. Get that out of the way. So what you're looking for with most muffin doughs, I have a friend that has this like muffin recipe in her head all the time. It is the best, healthiest muffin recipe I've ever had, and she literally just made it up. So I think as long as you have something to make it rise, some salt, and a relatively wet dough, that's the key. So make sure that your dry ingredients get really nicely incorporated. This dough looks like it's turning out to be a little bit shaggy, so a little bit of a rough dough, which is fine. Some are wetter doughs than others, but with the shaggy doughs and any dough that there's almost equal wet to dry, you really want to make sure that the wet's incorporated in, or else, the dry is incorporated into the wet, or else it's not gonna rise and form very well. So at least that's what I found. Again, I'm no baking professional, not by a long shot. Everything I've learned has been just kind of in the last probably 10 years. Though my mom was a heck of a cook, she didn't do a ton of baking. So, okay. So that's kind of incorporated. There you go. You guys can kind of see the texture of it. It's kind of clumpy. You set that aside now, and you are going to make the topping. So I've already got my cup of regular flour because my husband always says he can taste my healthy foods, and he doesn't like the taste of healthy foods very much. So I'm going to attempt to trick him a little bit by doing the crumb topping not in a whole wheat flour, but in a white flour. So we'll see if it works. I'll let you know how that final product turns out. So you take your 1 third cup of flour, and you do to that, add to that 1/2 cup of sugar. And again, I'm going to attempt to use this coconut sugar because I really like it. He will probably know the difference, but that's okay. I can tell him we're in survival mode right now. So 1/2 cup of sugar. Set the sugar out of the way there. And 1/4 cup of soft butter. Before I add that, though, I'm going to add the cinnamon. Because this is the order it gave it to me in, but I still think that doing all your dry ingredients before you add anything wet or soft, like butter or margarine, Crisco, whatever you use to it, really is the best way to do it. That way all your ingredients get mixed together before you add the wet thing, and it doesn't clump up in any certain spot. So we're doing 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon. So I'm doing it by the 1/2 teaspoon. So 1/2, 2/2, 3/2. There we go. Oh, and a tip on cinnamon. This is one of my favorite things I learned about cinnamon over the years. There's a couple different types of cinnamon out there. There's a Ceylon cinnamon, which is what I use, and there's a different cinnamon which is kind of sold in the grocery store in the packages. Turns out that the Ceylon cinnamon is actually pretty darn good for you. So if you go to a bulk store with spices, there's a great one in Hood River, Amore. Check out their cinnamon selection and look for Ceylon cinnamon. The two cinnamons differ in a sense that if you know anything about Eastern food, they'll describe things as hot versus cold. And it's not just the taste, it's kind of how it feels to your body and like your sinuses, how they take it all in. The Ceylon cinnamon gives off a colder feel than the regular store cinnamon, which is a hot sort of cinnamon. Anywho, just something to consider when you're buying cinnamon next time. So I try and buy as much of my spices in bulk as I can because I think they tend to be a little fresher and you can get lots of fun stuff to incorporate. I even make my own curry powder. So maybe I'll do a video on that. I don't know if I have everything right now, but I love to make my own curry powder because I cannot have nightshades. So I have to stay away from anything with peppers in them and stuff that has tomatoes. So anywho, all mixed together, kind of looks like cinnamon toast stuff that we had as kids, right? So there's that, and then you take the butter, the 4th cube of butter, which is about half a stick. So about half a stick of butter, and you're just gonna, I'm gonna break it apart a little bit outside instead of putting it all in as one big glob. And break it apart, drop it in, and this is the fun part. This is where you get in there with your hands. I've always, since I was a kid, loved getting messy. So, for those of you who don't like getting messy, if you have a supply of gloves right now, grab a glove, or if you have kiddos, get your kiddos in there. They'll love it. So you just get in there and you make your crumb topping. Really mush it together. I'm trying to think of a good well, a lot of you have made a crumb topping, but if you haven't, it's kind of the consistency of like wet sand. So, and you want it to have a couple of chunks in there, so when you put it on the top, it's kind of like a strudel topping. Really fun, really yummy. Just adds a little something. I think one of my favorite pies, definitely in the top 5, I do like a good pie, is an apple strudel pie. And it's all because of that crumb topping. So, and one of the easiest things to make is like a crumble. So if you are curious about what to do with like frozen fruit, like frozen blueberries or even strawberries or apples, you can make a crumble with very few ingredients, and that crumb topping will win people over every single time. So there's the consistency you're kind of looking for. Kind of crumbly, graham crackery sort of thing. And now we are going to fill our muffin tins. And once I'm just going to do one example, and then I'll come back and show you the final outcome of everything. So I'm kind of making these partly for myself, because who wouldn't want one of these, but also partly because I have a friend who has a birthday coming up. And though we are not getting close to each other during this time, I'm going to try and leave him a blueberry muffin for his birthday, because I know he can't get out and get a cake. So, you know, it's just something to do. Make sure you know, what I would encourage everybody to do right now, if they can, is just make sure the people in your life that might not be able to get out as much still feel loved, still know you're out there. It's so important to have that human contact. I know for me, that's probably what I miss the most, is giving people hugs. I'm a big hugger. So, anywho, this is what it looks like. So, there we go. I've added the crumb topping. You just want enough to kind of cover the top. And then I'm going to finish doing that and then pop it in the oven for 20 minutes. Again, I know my oven runs a little hot. Make sure you know your oven before you do it. Check them probably 5 minutes before the 20 minutes and see where they're at. And then I'll see you guys back with the final product here in just a bit. Bye!